Understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good evening to you and welcome to a very special edition of GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. It all started with this earlier today.
This morning, I removed the Conservative whip from Robert Jenrick after dismissing him from the shadow cabinet.
Seemingly out of nowhere, Kemi Badenoch sacked Robert Jenrick from the shadow cabinet. But then it all ended with this.
Britain is broken. Britain needs reform. And reform needs you.
Yes, just this afternoon, Reform UK unveiled Robert Jenrick as their latest defector and their 6th MP, a move that could signal the end of the Conservative Party as we know it. And finally.
And it is only right that we ask whether it's sensible to elect people to councils that are actually going to change in their composition in a few years' time.
And all of this has come amidst the news of 4 million people being denied a right to vote in the local elections ahead of tonight's deadline tomorrow. DD Day, Democracy Denied Day. And that's all to come, but first, on this huge day in British politics, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. Robert Jenrick has joined Reform UK after being sacked by the Conservative Party. The former Justice Secretary was sacked after his resignation speech was allegedly left printed out and hanging around. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage earlier said he'd been in talks with Mr Jenrick, though he denies a deal was imminent.
He wasn't going to join at 4:30 today. No, I'm sorry, Kemi, you've jumped the gun. You've added up 2 and 2 and made 5. He wasn't going to join today. He wasn't going to join tomorrow. He wasn't going to join next week. In fact, knowing what these negotiations are like, he might not have joined at all. I think on balance, it's 60-40 that he would have done. But you never know until the deal is signed and the hand is shaken.
I challenge anyone to argue other than that Britain is completely broken. Those that came before us built a great country, the greatest country in the world, but we are set to lose it. My first loyalty, our first loyalty, must be to our country. Turning it around will require each and every one of us to speak the truth. And not just to speak it, but to act. What's the truth? Both Labour and the Conservatives broke Britain, and both are now dominated by those without the competence or the backbone needed to fix it. Both parties, if judged by their own actions, are committed to a set of ideas that have failed.
Kemi Badenoch says she's delighted to announce Nick Timothy as the new Shadow Justice Secretary. She told broadcasters she did the right thing by sacking the Tory frontbencher. Robert Jenrick adding it was something that I had to do, as even people in Reform told her he was about to defect. Labour says the row exposes a party in freefall, with Sir Keir Starmer accusing the Conservatives of losing control of their own MPs as they bleed support to Reform.
But the last straw, and what pushed me to make this decision, was seeing that Robert had plans not just to leave, but to actually hurt the people that he'd been working with. The public are tired of all of this psychodrama, all of this personal ambition, everyone trying to, harm the other person. I'm sick of it, and I'm just done. And I asked him to leave. We don't want people like that in our party.
Elsewhere, the UK Foreign Office has said it's carefully considering a response to Russia expelling a British diplomat. Moscow accused the unidentified man of being an intelligence agent working undercover at the embassy in Russia's capital. The unnamed official has been given 2 weeks to leave the country, with the Kremlin warning it'll respond decisively if Britain escalates the situation. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper spoke this afternoon.
We've seen this repeated pattern from Russia. It's not the first time that they have done this. They make malign and unfounded allegations against our staff, and we consider our response. But it's because we know about the hostility that Russia continually shows. That's why we take so seriously things like the threat from the Russian Northern Fleet. It's why I'm here in Norway as part of our cooperation in tackling the Russian threats.
And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, it's back to Martin.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, thank you, Tatiana, and welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorb. Let's all take a deep breath because it's been a truly astonishing day in British politics. It all began with this shocking moment when the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, gave Robert Jenrick the boot.
I was very sorry to be presented with clear, irrefutable evidence, not just that he was preparing to defect, but he was planning to do so in the most damaging way possible to the Conservative Party and his shadow cabinet colleagues. It is my responsibility to protect our party, and faced with that information, I took the only decision that any responsible leader could.
And then Mr Jenrick was gone. And unveiling Reform UK Scotland leader earlier today, here's what Nigel Farage had to say when asked about Robert Jenrick.
So there's a lot of people seriously considering their future. As far as Mr Jenrick's concerned, of course I've talked to Robert Jenrick. Was I on the verge of signing a document with him? No. But have we had conversations? Yes.
So he was considering leaving the Conservatives and joining Reform UK?
I think virtually every Conservative is considering leaving the Conservatives, yes.
So the courtship was well underway, and of course, after that sacking, it was only ever going to be a matter of time.
Britain is broken. Britain needs reform, and reform needs you.
Yes, it happened. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in a move that could literally signal the death knell of the Conservative Party as we know it, it's now official. It's signed, it's sealed, it's delivered. Robert Jenrick has defected to Reform UK. I'm joined now for some reaction by the editor of the Sunday Telegraph and the most excellent columnist, Alistair Heath, and the former political secretary to Tony Blair, John McTernan. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio. A quite incredible day in British politics. Alistair Heath, I shall turn to you first. What does this mean for the future of the Conservative Party? And may I get your first reaction to what is a quite astonishing defection?
Yes, I mean, look, this is a huge day in British politics and a massive day when it comes to the future of the centre-right in Britain. Because both the Conservatives and Reform are now going for broke, right? So Reform needs to fight back. They need to show to the public that they are capable of governing, that they can attract big names, that they can create an alternative government. They can have a shadow cabinet in effect that's ready to take power, because that's the big criticism of Reform. It's a one-man band and, all that kind of stuff. So they need to show that's not the case. And in recent months, they've been sliding back slightly in the opinion polls, perhaps as immigration became slightly less salient and the economy became a bit more salient. So they had to do something big. And what's happened today is effectively that. It's precipitated that. And when it comes to the Conservative Party needs to survive, right? It looked like it was in terminal crisis a few months ago. Kemi Badenoch's done better since her party conference, and also Keir Starmer's, complete self-destruction and Rachel Reeves' disastrous decisions have helped Kemi Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch has improved her media performance. She's unveiled policy. She's been much more aggressive, and she's climbed slightly in the polls. So that was a situation at the beginning of the year, and now suddenly you've got this massive defection, huge defection. And I suspect more people are now going to leave the Conservative Party and join Reform. And, things are moving in a very different direction.
Nigel Farage said the right is a lot less split than it was this morning. And Mr Jenrick repeatedly referred in his eviscerating speech. I mean, he truly flamethrowed the Conservative Party on the way out. That part of the problem was he couldn't do what he wanted because he said the Conservatives were in a state of total denial, or worse, almost all Tory MPs said Britain isn't broken when they were asked, and they couldn't admit that because they were the ones who broke it.
There are two kinds of people in Britain. There are people who think that this country is actually broken, in a very bad place, and needs radical change, perhaps led by outsiders.
And you believe that it is broken?
I'm actually on that. I'm on that side of the argument. And then there's the other side of the argument which says there's a few problems, but, you know, a bit of technocratic fiddling can basically sort things. And what Jenrick is effectively saying is that too many people in the Conservative Party are on the wrong side, from my perspective, of that argument. Now, obviously, it was partly self-interested. Kemi Badenoch has done better recently, so it looked perhaps less likely that Mr Jenrick would be able to take over from her as leader of the Conservative Party, though you never know what would have happened after the May elections. But many people started to think, the received wisdom anyway, was that she would survive the May elections because it'd be a catastrophe, a much greater catastrophe for Starmer than for anybody else. But anyway, nonetheless, I think there's a very interesting point here that Jenrick is raising. His point is too many Conservative MPs are really of the left. Too many Conservative MPs are complacent. They don't accept the scale of the disaster that's befallen Britain. They're responsible for it together with Labour. And therefore, even if Kemi Badenoch does lots of great stuff and calls for leaving the ECHR and a crackdown on this and a crackdown on that and lower taxes and so on, these Tory MPs will have never really back her. They'll never really support her. And even if she became Prime Minister, nothing would really change in this country. I think that's the core of the critique.
John McTurnan, let's bring you now, former advisor to Tony Blair. Robert Jenrick was no less flattering in his assumptions about the Labour Party. He said, these people, the Labour Party, run Britain as if they hate it. But they didn't do it alone. The two main parties are rotten. They both broke Britain and neither can fix it. John McTurnan, is this the end of the road for the Conservative Party?
It feels to me as though this is as significant, really, as when the Labour Party was put into government in 1924. So after that moment, the Liberals were never able to form a government. The Labour Party became the alternative party government. And we do have a parliamentary system that really depends on two parties, both of which are capable of taking office. And I think Alice was completely correct there. One of the weaknesses of the offer of reform is who is going to be their shadow Secretary of State for DEFRA, who's going to be the shadow Secretary of State for Wealth and for Work and Pensions. So in this sense, what we see, I think, is the first, and I agree with Alistair again, the first of many defections. Because if you are mid-career and a Conservative and off the right in British politics, an honourable tradition, if you are then, where would you choose to go if you wish to have ministerial office in your prime? I think the attraction of going to join the reform has risen. I think it gives an opportunity for Labour in the sense that it defines a split in the centre-right that needs to be resolved. I've never thought that Nigel Farage was going to do an easy deal with the Tory party. I always thought that Nigel's ambition was to replace the Tories, not to come into some kind of agreement with them. And I think the problem that Jenrick has pointed out, Robert Jenrick has pointed out, in Kemi Badenoch's leadership, and her recent revival, I accept what Alistair said was correct. Kemi Badenoch has not yet been able to bring herself to say why the voters turned on the Conservative Party, what it was that all the Prime Ministers, Tory Prime Ministers, 14 years, did wrong, and what it is she's going to do to conservatism to make it a 21st century conservatism. And she's allowed space there for not just Nigel Farage to articulate the case, but also for the figures to start going across.
Alistair Heath, I must turn to you now. Robert Jenrick said repeatedly we were prevented from doing what we wanted to do. When he was Immigration Minister, he said there were only one or two of us who supported my brief. He name-checked Suella Braverman. Do you think she will follow next?
Yeah, I mean, I think she will, yes. I don't know when, but if it's going to happen, it'd be in everybody's interest for it to happen quite quickly. I'd say on Saturday morning for my own purposes with the Sunday Telegraph, but there you go. I
Maybe
think
Friday afternoon.
Right, well, that's a bit too early. But anyway, something like that I think is going to happen, yes, and there may be some others too, because I think the floodgates have been opened. This is a key psychological moment. This is the first time a very large player who could potentially be Prime Minister himself has changed sides.
Now, the key point in this is if we see parliamentarians of this stature, true blue Conservatives, Robert Jenrick repeatedly said today, he was a Tory member since the age of 16, if they can make the jump to Reform UK, will the voters go with them?
This is the key question. So the key point here is this. Basically, between a fifth and a quarter of the British public now backs reform probably all the time. But you've got a certain chunk of the Conservative electorate that is still very nervous about going across to reform. And I think what's happened, there's been two phases here. First phase was some Labour voters and others backed reform. There was a realignment, a move from the left to the right. The working class basically realised, you know, they're no longer at home in the Labour Party and things like that. But now, I think we're on a zero-sum game. There's basically a bunch of left-wing voters and a bunch of right-wing voters, and they're not really shifting from left to right. They are shifting within the left or within the right. So if you're on the left, you might go from Labour to the Greens. If you're on the right, it's either Reform or the Conservatives. But there's a lot of Conservative voters left, the kinds of people who don't quite trust reform. That they're worried about their pensions, they're worried about all that sort of stuff. Reform needs to change that if they want to win.
OK, Alistair, John, superb start to the show. Please stick with us. Coming up in just a moment's time.
And all I would say to Nigel is, Rob's not my problem anymore. He's your problem now.
And we're joined by the furious chairman of Robert Jenrick's ex-local Conservative Association for his first TV interview. And let's just say he's not remotely happy. That's next.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. An extraordinary day in politics, and continuing on our coverage of those sensational events today, the news that Robert Jenrick has defected to Reform UK, making their 6th MP. Here was Kemi Badenoch moments before the announcement, and she did not mince her words.
But the last straw, and what pushed me to make this decision, was seeing that Robert had plans not just to leave, but to actually hurt the people that he'd been working with. I'm the leader of our party, and I have to be responsible for all of the people out there, the MSPs here in Scotland, the councillors who are fighting elections, and they need to know that we in Westminster are giving them a good backdrop, explaining what our policies are. The public are tired of all of this psychodrama, all of this personal ambition, everyone trying to, harm the other person. I'm sick of it, and I'm just done. And I asked him to leave. We don't want people like that in our party.
And Kemi Bader also added that Robert Jenrick was no longer her problem, but the problem of Nigel Farage. And she also said this in a direct address to Nigel Farage.
And all I would say to Nigel is, Rob's not my problem anymore. He's your problem now.
And there we go, replacing Robert Jenrick as Shadow Justice Secretary will now be Nick Timothy MP. And writing on X, formerly Twitter, Kemi Badenoch wrote this: I'm delighted to announce that Nick Timothy is the new Shadow Justice Secretary. He is a true Conservative, brings a wealth of experience and is a formidable campaigner. Nick will be a massive asset to the Shadow Cabinet team as we continue to develop our plans for a stronger economy, stronger borders and a stronger country. Well, we're joined now by the chairman of Newark Conservatives, Robert Jenrick's old local association, who has said they have been utterly betrayed by him. So let's get my guest in now. Good evening to you, sir. I'm assuming you're utterly spitting feathers about today's decision. Tell us your feelings.
Well, it's not. I'm not angry. I'm just very, very disappointed in Robert. You know, we've carried him. We've supported him massively in his political ambitions to be the leader of the party, and then everything he's wanted to do, really. So for him to do this and to say and to make out he's somebody with integrity and honesty when he's been working on this since September, it's a joke.
Maybe now the joke is on the Conservative Party, though. Let's be absolutely frank here. Robert Jenrick, on his way out, was eviscerating about the party, not of the local association in Newark, but of the party itself. Both the Conservatives and Labour broke Britain, and neither have the backbone to fix it. Utterly eviscerating of the Conservative Party. Now you're still left to pick up the pieces. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's absolute rubbish. You know, he's been part of it. You know, he's been in all the senior positions to be able to do something about it. And actually, he wasn't the best in those positions. OK, he resigned because he wanted to go further on immigration. But, you know, come on, it's like driving a car into a wall, getting out and blaming the passenger. He's been part of this and he's trying to blame everybody else but take responsibility himself. You know, Kemi has taken the lead now, and she's actually transforming the party and bringing us back to being true Conservatives. And that's what we want as Conservatives, who always have been Conservatives, want to get back to that, the true principles and the true directive that we need to have.
Keith Girding, wasn't that, in the roundabout terms, Robert Jenrick's position? He wanted to be a Conservative, he wanted to control borders, he wanted to lower taxes, he wanted to get rid of wokery, he wanted to combat net zero, and he was continually prohibited from doing so by what he said, a bunch of ministers and parliamentarians who are completely out of touch with reality. He couldn't get the job done because he's prevented by his own parliamentarians. The problem isn't Robert Jenrick, the problem is the Conservative Party.
Well, that's ridiculous, isn't it? There's a very good saying, and I won't say it as it should be said, but it's something about you're better off peeing in the tent outwards than out the tent inwards. You know, and the Conservatives are there. I've not been happy with the Conservatives, but I haven't left because, I'm not happy at the moment. I'm doing my bit to try and get us back to being proper Conservatives, and he should be doing that. You know, all these people that's leaving different parties to be part of reform. Let's be clear about it. They're not doing it because they believe in reform. They're doing it because they believe their political ambition will be best served in reform because they think they're going to landslide in the next election. But I think some of them will get a bit of a shock, actually.
Well, Keith Girding, thank you for not using the actual phrase there. You've saved me having to make an apology and perhaps saved my job.
I'd love to use the actual phrase, but yeah.
Please don't, sir. Please don't. I think we've already circumnavigated the fact you've been polite and you've saved my blushes. On a serious point, pretty soon you'll be campaigning against your old boss in Newark. Newark, repeatedly, I'm from Nottinghamshire. My dad lives next door in Loudon. It's a seat where the Conservatives have been wobbling. They've been struggling. Repeated polls show it could well go turquoise, and Robert Jenrick was the reason it wouldn't. They voted for Robert Jenrick, not for the Conservative Party. That leaves you with a huge headache, a very popular local parliamentarian, now with a very popular local party. It's bad news for the Conservatives in Newark, is it not?
Well, to be fair, I don't believe what you just said is correct anyway. I think if you look at Nottinghamshire in particular, or Newark in particular, actually, we've booked the trend. You know, we've got more Conservative councillors than anybody else around, because the Conservatives...
a lot of that was because of Robert Jenrick, was it not?
Yeah, but no. The people look at what the Conservatives are doing. It's not just about Robert Jenrick. It's about what the Conservatives are doing. And we've got really good Conservative councillors. We've got the leader of the Conservative group at Nottingham County Council, Sam Smith, is a great councillor and a good leader, and he's driving forward, showing... Because we've got a reform council there, remember, and is demonstrating to people how incompetent they are, and they are incompetent. So, you know, it's not just about Robert. Robert is one man, and the party is bigger than one man. We'll get on with it. I'm a pragmatic person. My next role is to find out who we're going to have as our next candidate, and we'll knock Robert Jenrick off his perch, and we'll continue to have Conservatives in Newark.
And Keith Girling, if we could please continue tonight's trend of you not swearing, if you had to sum up Robert Jenrick in one word, what would it be?
Disappointing. I thought he was better than that.
OK, well, thank you for being pragmatic. Thank you for not costing me my job tonight. Keith Girling, the chairman of Newark Conservatives, thank you very, very much for joining us on the show. So what does all this mean for the future of the Conservative Party now, particularly locally there, in absolute tatters? I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by the editor of the Sunday Telegraph and the excellent columnist Alistair Heath, and the former political secretary to Tony Blair, John McTernan. Alistair, I should come to you first. It does leave the Conservatives in a precarious position, even in Newark, which was looking like the sole Conservative stronghold in all of Nottinghamshire.
It does. I mean, you know, but I think Kemi Badenoch played this as well as she could this morning. I think by getting onto the front foot, she seized the first move advantage, and she sacked him before he quit. Right now, I don't know when he would have actually left and so on. But the point is, she went out with, you know, and she showed her strength, her resilience, and so on. She seized control of this. Exactly. She seized control of the situation. I think a lot of Conservatives are like that. They like strong leaders, and that's one of their criticisms in the past also of Kemi Badenoch. So I think she did what she could then. So the morning was Kemi Badenoch's, but the afternoon was Robert Jenrick's and Nigel Farage's.
And Nigel Farage thanked Kemi Badenoch. He offered to buy her a drink.
Yes, and he said it was the latest Christmas present he's ever had, and it was quite funny. But the question now is, what does the Conservative Party do to fight back? And I think she should. I think Kemi Badenoch needs to A, continue as she's doing, B, be more apologetic about the errors of the Conservative Party in the past, explain further why they got things wrong, maybe reshuffle her cabinet, her shadow cabinet, as soon as possible, bring in new talent, because they have some new talent, and finally, I think she just needs to take on the left within her party. I think that's very important.
Isn't that the problem, though, John McTernan? We've seen since Brexit, two Conservative parties, the Remain wing, the Brexit wing, the woke wing, the Conservative wing, the high-tax wing, the low-tax wing. Is this a problem that's simply too big by rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic?
Look, I think there's a problem for both the Labour Party and the Tory Party, both the older parties, more established parties at the moment, which is on left and on right, there are insurgent, populist but now popular forces. They're questioning the way the economy is run. They're questioning on whose behalf the economy is run. The Conservative Party, you heard that from Keith Girling, who was just speaking. He did two interesting things for me. He said they were willing to back Robert Jenrick and his leadership ambitions. They knew what he was doing as much as Kemi did. But he also said, you know, he liked what Kemi is doing to make it a proper Conservative Party. And I think there's a brand issue there. What is a proper Conservative Party? You can't keep going back to Brexit. That's nearly 10 years ago. So you can't say you're done. Define yourself about the past. That's
but the same fault lines exist within the party. Yeah. The same Conservatives, many people like Alistair, think will be better off than the Liberal Democrats.
But for example, I think we don't have a strong enough competition authority. And the reason I don't think that, I think that actually competitive markets are better for business and better for consumers. I think there's a progressive way of doing it. I think there's a conservative way of doing it. And I don't think it really involves being for or against Brexit. It's about how do you find the questions for the future? How do we build the houses we need? Some of it's deregulation, some of it's more private capital, some of it is, I think, the role for local government. So it's that looking at those questions. So what's a proper Conservative? I think it's not looking backwards, it's looking forward. What's proper Labour? Not looking backward, looking forward. What's the public saying? We want change. Ever since Brexit,
well, they want change. I mean, Sir Keir Starmer this week was polling lower than Hamas. It's a true thing.
Hamas luckily aren't running in the UK elections.
But my point is, people are looking to what's out there. They might call it the uni party for that unflattering phrase. They're looking at Labour, they're looking at Conservatives on both sides of the spectrum, Alistair. They're thinking, I'm fed up with this, I want change.
Yes, and I think the Conservative Party's great challenge is to show not only that it's now talking the language of the small C Conservative voter, which Kemi Badenoch has successfully managed to do. She's done well on that. Not just talking the language, but actually has a credible plan to implement what the small C Conservative voter wants. And by the way, that's also Nigel Farage's challenge, but different. So the Conservatives' challenge is that people are worried that the old establishment figures, the wets, whatever, the technocrats will just take over. Even if Kemi Badenoch's Prime Minister, they will run the show and the civil servants will be in charge, nothing will change, and it will be like under Rishi Sunak, basically what small C Conservative voters thought was basically a social democratic declinist government. And when it comes to Nigel Farage, he needs to show that he can actually have the talents and the people who can actually run a country properly.
Gentlemen, superb stuff. Thank you very much, Alistair. Thank you very much, John. Please stick with us. Coming up in just a moment's time.
Well, my question is, why did it take so long? Jenrick's been making toxic comments to try and divide our country for months and months and months. And it's only now, when he's on the verge of defecting to reform, that Badenoch gets round to sacking him.
Keir Starmer there momentarily enjoying the glow, but will it actually spell trouble for him? We'll be looking at how the other parties have reacted to today's bombshell news and discuss what it means for them, and that's next.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Things turning a bit drier over eastern England tonight, and that will allow things to turn perhaps a bit foggy through the night, and as things turn chilly, we may see some icy patches first thing tomorrow. But it's been a very wet day for some today. This area of low pressure crossing through England has been bringing some heavy and persistent rain. Still a lot of spray and surface water on the roads out there this evening, but all tending to pull away out into the North Sea by soon after midnight. Showers will follow into Wales and southern parts of England, the east of Northern Ireland and southwest Scotland, but otherwise turning dry. Quite a cold night across the north especially, some pockets of frost likely, certainly where there's snow lying on the ground across Scotland. Temperatures may well get down to -5 to maybe as low as -8 Celsius. So a cold, frosty start across northern Scotland. Should be some sunshine. Could also be some mist and fog around. A cloudier start across southwest Scotland with some showers drifting in here, and the same goes for the east of Northern Ireland. In fact, it could be misty and foggy almost anywhere first thing, with some showers close to the south coast and into westernmost parts of Wales. But overall, certainly for central and eastern England, much drier than today. In the west, where we see these showers coming into Devon, Cornwall, western side of Wales, the east coast of Northern Ireland and southwest Scotland. Could be heavy, could even turn into thunderstorms. 1 or 2 showers possible elsewhere, but equally many places will be dry and bright with a bit of sunshine if the fog clears. Now, if the fog sticks, which it can do at this time of year, temperatures will really struggle, but generally we're looking at 6 to 9 degrees, so about average for the time of year. Into Saturday, and well, again, it's a bit of a messy one. Some mist and low clouds sticking in places. A few showers across northern England and Scotland, some around western coast, but many areas I suspect will be dry on Saturday. It should brighten up a little in some spots, and temperatures again about 5 to 9 Celsius. Bye for now.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Well, it's an extraordinary day in British politics. Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorby. And the fallout from Robert Jenrick's astonishing defection to Reform UK continues. And the former Conservative minister went all out. He went fully in with a brutal and deeply personal takedown of his old party.
The Conservative Party in Westminster isn't sorry. It doesn't get it. It hasn't changed. It won't change. It can't change.
And in a significant intervention, Robert Jenrick torpedoed seemingly any hopes of a Reform Tory merger by declaring there should be no pact between the two parties.
I don't believe there is likely to be or should be a pact or a deal with the Conservative Party. The message I've just delivered to you today is that I think the Conservative Party has failed to understand the mistakes that it made, has not repented for that. Why would anyone in this country hand the keys back to these people to take it forward and hope that they would fix the country?
So for all the talk of mergers and uniting the right, might this be remembered as the day that that idea finally died and a once-in-a-century realignment of the British right wing began? Well, I'm delighted to be joined now in the studio by the former Tory cabinet minister and GB News presenter, the legend Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, and I'm still joined by my panel, and that's the editor of the Sunday Telegraph, Alistair Heath, and the former political secretary to Tony Blair, John McTurnan. Sir Jacob, welcome back to the show. An incredible day in British politics. We saw this coming earlier on, and now it's happened. Nigel Farage said the right is a lot less split than it was this morning. We've seen a significant realignment, and again, echoing sentiments there. There's now no chance of a pact between the Conservatives and Reform.
Who said there was no chance of a pact?
Robert Jenrick.
Yes, who said about a week ago that he was not going to join Reform and he was staying in the Conservative Party?
Robert Jenrick.
Yes, and that's the point, that nobody can say that they are leaving their political party or that they're creating a pact until they do. This is the absolute routine of politics. I'm afraid I'm an unusual bird in many ways, a bird of peculiar plumage, that I like discussing things that may happen and that realistically could happen. And this happened with the Conservatives and Lib Dems in 2010, when both sides said they wouldn't have an alliance with each other, they hated each other, what was the biggest joke in politics, Nick Clegg, you know, all of that, and then they had to do one. And political reality overrides these sorts of statement of will. They're not actively dishonest. They are a routine statement that you have to make. It's like the Governor of the Bank of England cannot say, I will devalue the pound, because the moment he says it, it's devalued. And in forming a pact, you have to negotiate from strength. And if you say, I'm desperate for a pact, you don't have that strength.
But Robert Jenrick was saying, he was talking about the people that run Britain, the Labour Party, they run it as if they hate it, but they didn't do it alone. The two main parties are rotten. Both Labour and the Conservatives broke Britain, and neither of them have the backbone to fix it. The flamethrower was applied to the Conservatives on the way out. Surely that lessens any chance of there being any pact or reunion.
People can be very grown up about these things and can cope. Politicians have to have thick skins. But I'd also say that there's an overstatement in that politics always has to go with the grain of the nation. Now, I've never been a believer in net zero. I've never wanted it. I think it's a dreadful waste of money. But when it came in under the Conservatives, the whole of the rest of the nation did. Opinion polls showed overwhelming support for it. And governments can do a certain amount of things, and they should always do what they want to do. They should do what in principle they are in favour of. But they can't do everything that they are in favour of because the nation isn't there with them. The nation has changed its mind on net zero. The nation has changed its mind on reform of the National Health Service. Both of these are now possible for right-wing parties to do. But if David Cameron had come in 2010 with an aggressive reform of the NHS, which was almost certainly needed, and people knew it was needed, he wouldn't have won the election.
But Sir Jacob, the issue is this, and it's been echoed by yourself and certainly was by Robert Jenrick today. The Conservative Party simply ceased to be conservative. Particularly, Robert Jenrick was saying today, when he was the Minister for Immigration, there were 23 ministers, but only 1 or 2 were with me. He name-checked Suella Braverman. Yeah. And that's the point, isn't it? There's a Conservative Party that's conservative only in name.
Shall I be wildly indiscreet?
Go on.
All right. One of the people who was not in favour of limiting immigration was certainly not me. I was all for limiting it. Was one Nadeem Tahawi, who's just gone off to reform. The people's political views evolve, and the nation's view evolves. That because of the small boats, people have become much tougher on immigration. Indeed, taken a position that I have broadly always taken, that immigration needed to be controlled. But that wasn't what people were worrying about immediately after COVID. They were worrying about there being nobody to serve anybody in a bar or no social care and all of this. And so politicians deal with events as they are, and then when they look back, they say, oh, my goodness, that was a mistake. And they grow up from this.
I think you're right. I think Jacob is right. The voters are always right in politics. And the moment that an MP or a minister or a party says, do you know what, I think the voters are misled, that's the moment that you're turning your back on them. You have to listen, you have to manage. You can't win every argument, but you don't win every argument by being, I'm right, you're wrong. You win arguments by going, I've got to persuade you with an argument.
But the point is, though, John, successive governments of both colours haven't listened to the electorate. They haven't done what they're told. They wouldn't do what they're told on Brexit. They wouldn't do what they're told on immigration, on taxation, on net zero, on wokery. And that is how we got to where we are today.
Look, I suspect that there's probably consensus around this panel that the public voted for change when they voted for Brexit, and that a lot of that change was about the consensus in Whitehall that allowed Treasury to rule some things out completely and rule other things in, and that there's something about a competitive economy that does have competitive markets, and that neither the Tory government or the Labour governments have tried to do that enough. So to unleash our entrepreneurship.
The concurrent problem is a political class who think they know best, who think they know better than the electorate. They won't listen, and Robert Jenrick just told us today that even his own party wouldn't listen to him.
And I'm concerned that paradoxically this is bad for the Conservative Party for a simple reason, which is if right-wing MPs start leaving the Conservative Party in greater and greater numbers, you've already had 2 that have left, maybe more will follow Robert Jenrick, then the Conservative Party will shift to the left. And Kemi Badenoch's done very well, I think, at changing the language and changing the policies and shifting dramatically more towards where small C Conservative voters want the Conservative Party to be. Very strong on the ECHR, very strong on immigration, on tax cuts, getting rid of stamp duty, all that stuff, very good stuff. The problem is the left-wing MPs within the Conservative Party have so far kept quiet. They haven't said anything. But they may feel emboldened as their numbers or their share of the overall parliamentary party starts to increase. And this shift in the balance of power in the Conservative Party, paradoxically, may make a future alliance with reform more difficult.
OK, thank you very much, John McTernan. Anna Heath, superb. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, excellent as ever. Coming up in just a few moments' time.
And it is only right that we ask whether it's sensible to elect people to councils that are actually going to change in their composition in a few years' time.
It's all of today's high political drama has overshadowed another huge political story, and that is as many as 4 million people are set to be denied their democratic right to vote. We'll find out in what areas at midnight. It's DD Day, Democracy Denied Day. That's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Through the rest of the week and into the weekend, there's some pretty unsettled weather spreading its way eastwards across the Mediterranean. As we go through tomorrow, there'll be rain, even some hill snow pushing through Portugal and Spain, also some heavy bursts of rain across southern France. All of that is going to make its way eastwards, and so although there's some dry, at times bright weather around at the moment, as we go into the weekend, we're in for some heavy thundery rain and also some strong gusty winds leading to rough seas.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, Robert Jenrick's dramatic defection to join Nigel Farage's party today marked a seismic blow to the Conservatives and a major boost to Reform UK's momentum. But in what many believe is a ploy to scupper that momentum, dozens of councils will tonight at midnight cancel their local elections due to be held this May, denying democracy to up to 4 million voters. Now, it's estimated the government will cancel at least 27 of them, meaning hundreds of Labour and Conservative councillors will be able to cling on to power for up to 7 years. And in just over 4 hours' time, we'll know exactly how many of them have chickened out. Now, here was the Prime Minister justifying that move earlier on today.
Well, what is happening is the biggest reorganisation of councils for 50 years, and it is only right that we ask whether it's sensible to elect people to councils that are actually going to change in their composition in a few years' time. But the government is not taking the decision on this. It's down to individual locally led decisions, and different councils have taken different positions.
Well, joining me now to discuss this in the studio in Westminster is a true titan of local government, the former Member of Parliament and the current High Steward of Colchester, Sir Bob Russell. And I'm also, of course, delighted to be joined still by my panel, and that's Alistair Heath and John McTurnan. We have to turn to you first, Sir Bob. At midnight tonight, we will learn the list of shame. Up to 27 councils, perhaps, and 4 million voters denied. This to you must be a total abomination.
If you're a Democrat, you don't cancel elections. It's as simple as that. And last year we had cancelled or postponed elections. One of them was Essex County Council, and I've been there to express my displeasure on 3 occasions. I'm pleased to say I've been promised that they haven't applied again. There's no justification for postponing elections. I was around and involved the last time we had local government reorganisation 51 years ago. We didn't cancel or postpone elections then. And I make this added point as well. The 1945 general election was held with the World War II still waging in the Far East. If they can hold a general election when there's a World War raging, they can hold local council elections.
Do you think this is the government running scared of the election? When you look at the metrics, there certainly seems, Sir Bob, to be a heavy skew towards Labour Party councils who simply don't want to face the electorate. Nigel Farage says those are the actions of a banana republic.
I can't disagree with that observation. As I repeat, people who believe in democracy don't cancel or postpone elections. They hold elections. The notion that because you are reorganising local government, you therefore cannot have elections is just a fallacy, and I've made the point in 1974, 73, 74, elections weren't cancelled. Now, in the case of Essex County Council, I've made my displeasure known. I've been to their meetings, and as a member of the public spoke on 3 occasions. They barred me on a 4th occasion, so I was not having any of that. So I did a protest.
There we go. So it's holding that T-shirt there to camera one, you can see.
Democracy, that one there. And then on the other side, I had that, and I stood outside County Hall, Chelmsford, with a megaphone and read out the speech that they refused to let me give in the council chamber.
So you utterly refute the notion that this is because, oh, we need more time to sort this out. This is a cover story. It's a farce.
It's a total farce. Democracy must always come first. I accept that the parties in power at County Hall and Town Hall may well be encouraged to ask for postponement in order that they can continue in office. Those who have asked the government to cancel, postpone their elections cannot call themselves Democrats.
Well, Sir Bob, thank you very much. Let's get my panel in. John McTurnan, I must come to you first because the allegations are very heavily levelled towards the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. He's been called a dictator who's denying democracy.
It is, as Bob said there in his the closing remarks, it is the local councils who are asking for the elections to be deferred. This is a much-needed local government reform, creating unitary authorities, combining the powers of the district councils and the county councils, giving the councillors in those areas much more ability to shape the areas, shape the economy, shape the planning system, cater for the growth that's needed in houses, but all of those things, John, be local leaders.
The problem with that is that the cancellations list is almost entirely Labour councils. Come on, this is the party running scared.
No, the rhythm of elections is not dictated by which party is in the government. The rhythm of elections reflects this is the time for these counties, this is the time for these boroughs in London, this is the time. The core point is much-needed devolution. Devolution is going to go to these new combined authorities, these new unitary authorities, and at the end of the day, Keir Starmer hasn't said who is and is not going to not have an election. The councils choose, and they're currently the people who've been elected by the local voters are the democratic representatives.
Alistair Heath, must bring you in. The Telegraph has been launching a campaign on this. I've been watching the comments of your readers. They're utterly furious.
Yeah, our readers are furious, and they're right to be furious, because this is an abomination. This is totally wrong, it's immoral, it's an outrage. It is a travesty that in 2026, in Britain, the cradle of democracy, right, we are cancelling elections. For absolutely no reason, some dumb technocratic excuse. I don't buy any of it. It's unacceptable. None of these elections, without exception, should be cancelled. It doesn't matter if you've got an election and the thing only lasts another year before you reform it. I couldn't care less. We should be holding these elections. It's very, very important. And I think the rot set in 10 years ago, whenever, with Brexit, after Brexit, when people started moving away, some parts of the elite started moving away from democracy. And I think when we say that Britain is broken, I think Britain is broken because we're turning our back, or some people in this country are turning their backs on democracy. We must hold these elections. This is totally wrong.
OK, thank you, Anna Heath, John McTurnan, and, of course, Sir Bob Russell. You've all been superb tonight. Now, just to let you know, that full list we're expected to be published at midnight tonight. We'll be covering this, of course, tomorrow extensively on GB News. I'll be back 3 till 6 p.m. for the list of shame on DD Day, the Denial of Democracy Day. That will be huge for us tomorrow on the channel. Thanks for your company tonight on a huge day in British politics. Spectacular defection of Robert Jenrick. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg.
He's stayed in place.
He's up next for State of the Nation.
Well, thank you. Oh, no. Hello. Well, we're going to be talking about this defection. It's extraordinarily big news. I think that Kemi Badenoch has played it as well as she possibly could have done, but Robert going to reform is big news for reform, very positive reform. But actually, Conservatism at the end of today, a day of real activity, is probably stronger than it was 24 hours ago. So an exciting day in politics, another one. It never seems to stop.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Things turning a bit drier over eastern England tonight, and that will allow things to turn perhaps a bit foggy through the night, and as things turn chilly, we may see some icy patches